here we go. First look, of course, looks very similar. I guess to give my background, I guess with Mothership, it might be useful. I've definitely ran Mothership a lot of times before. I'm a third-party publisher, like content creator person for Mothership. I made an adventure pamphlet called The Mole on Pyrad 1. It's about sort of a space punk commune being infiltrated by a corporate mole, as the name would suggest. Working on a zine month project as well. A zine called The Blood Fields at Black Star Station that's going to be a battle royale, sort of themed black market setting where your party gets pulled out of hyperspace by pirates and thrown into a game where they have to fight or escape or all those kind of good things. So those are the things I'm working on now. I have run, I will say in relation to what we're talking about right here, I have run like a 0.9 edition hack of this. I pulled everything I could from the videos that Sean and Alan put up of them walking through the PSG before when the Kickstarter was still alive, and ran What We Give to Alien Gods by Lone Archivist. Using that, I basically like converted it and we ran it as we could and had a good time with it. So I have some experience with the rules here, but I'm just basically going to read through and see how what's here lands. Very similar looking to the 0 edition player's guide here. We have, this nameless dead astronaut here, and then the big work in progress watermark on it. Yeah, so inside cover, it looks like it's going to be very similar to what was there before. Oh, let me make me go away. You guys don't need to see me. There. It looks like once we get in here on the inside front cover, same as before. Weapons and damage chart, armor. Just at first look, this doesn't look too different, but it is really nice to have these kind of things right inside the front cover or the back cover of these zines. It really is like, that's a big Tuesday Night Games thing I know, is they're very diehard about that. Those covers being used for like the stuff you always need to glance to. But I think it really sticks out, especially in comparison to a lot of RPG books that have that stuff stuck, like some, a random page in the middle of the book. Boarding axe, combat shotgun, crowbar, flamethrower, flare gun, foam gun, frag grenade, hand welder, laser cutter, nail gun, pulse rifle, revolver, rigging gun, scalpel, smart rifle, SMG, stun baton, trank pistol, unarmed, and vibeshete. Here, let me do this. Well, I kind of want, let me see. Let's do this. This will be better for watching and reading than how I had it. Even though, I'll zoom out occasionally so we can get a look at some of the spreads. But nice, simple breakdown, cost range, damage. The thing that I think is really cool about the system as it is now and as it has been before to some extent was I love this crit table and how different weapons have different critical effects. That's really cool. That makes them really stand out uniquely from one another and might suggest why you would wield one rather than another if the actual number damage is the same. Specials, always cool too. Like trank pistols can be so useful. Speaking of my pamphlet adventure earlier, one of the playtests for that, we had someone with a trank pistol that trank pistoled the mole and was able to subdue them, and they ended that whole adventure still taking some damage from some of the other threats there, but they were able to basically keep this person alive and turn them in and stuff, which was pretty cool. So I love what's here. Not a lot new though. Some changes and tweaks, but a lot of the standards that we came to know from 0 edition. Armor, standard crew attire, vac suit, hazard suit, standard battle dress, advanced battle dress. So this is really nice to have speed, O2 supply, special. As far as I know, those were things that were relegated in the past to a separate interior page. So it's nice to have those here. And then armor points, the AP here is, I know, a big change in the system. So we'll go there as we get to it though. I really enjoyed it, using it in the edition that I did of that sort of hacky early version. Some very cool new disturbing corpse in the void kind of art. Has that same really sort of grimy quick and grimy style of, I don't know if this is done by Sean McCoy, but it looks very similar to the Sean McCoy art from the original Zero Edition guide and what we saw on the front cover. Content warning. I'm glad to see a content warning here. I don't think that we saw one in the original edition. Mothership is a horror game for mature audiences. It contains violence, foul language, some sexual content, and depictions of mental illness, trauma, stress, and panic that may not be suitable for all audiences. Please be advised. Yeah, it's good to have that right up front to let you know what you might run into. I think this is a good content warning for this game. I think it's on individual modules and adventures to be more explicit with the types of things you might see in them than this, but this gives us a good overall. Credits blank. I assume they're gonna fill this in, funnily enough, but yeah, we can see work in progress draft. So the credits are still up and coming, and then we get right into how to make your character. This, I believe, is a spread worth showing off, though. If I remember correctly. Oh, I will say hello in the chat. Hello, Todd Moonbounce. A little wave. I'm waving back to you as well. And 500 pounds of nothing. Hello as well. Yeah, you're right. Maybe the credits are blank because this was just like a sort of an elaborate, just like a divine act. It just appeared one day. What am I looking for? Why is my brain just turned off? Page display. There we go. All right, so here's the spread. This is what I was trying to show off. So this would be the spread in the actual book itself, and this is great. Not only is the character sheet, I think, great, and I think the new one that they've done is better, but this is a very awesome way to right off the bat. It's the player's guide. This is exactly what the player needs to know from the beginning, and I love that they lay out the character sheet on it and kind of walk you through it at the same time, rather than you having to have one right next to the book and the other and that kind of thing. Anyway, we'll get back to this. Welcome to Mothership, the sci-fi horror RPG where you and your crew try to survive in the most inhospitable environment in the universe, outer space. You'll excavate dangerous derelict spacecraft, explore strange unknown worlds, encounter hostile alien life, and examine the horrors encroaching upon your every move. Let's get started. The character sheet at the back of the book has all the instructions for how to create your character. All you need to do is follow the numbered steps in each box until you've filled everything in. Step 1, roll stats. You have 4 stats: strength, speed, intellect, and combat, which represent how well you act under extreme pressure. That's a good, probably specific wording. I bet you they felt very specific about putting under extreme pressure, because they think that really relates to how best to dial in your when are you rolling and when are you not rolling in this game, as opposed to like more traditional fantasy stuff where you roll kind of for everything. You should really only be rolling when you're under extreme pressure in Mothership. Roll 2 10-sided dice, 2d10, add them together, then add 20. Record the results for each stat. Easy. Stat score of 30 is about average, but don't get too hung up on your numbers right now. This always feels nice to put players, especially new ones, at ease. I like how straightforward this is. It gives you room for the person at your table in the game to do whatever they want. It doesn't say, roll them specifically in order and place them there. It doesn't say roll 4 and then choose where you put them. It just says roll them and go. So lots of room to do fun little homebrew house rule kind of thing there. Step 2, roll saves. Your 3 saves are sanity, fear, and body, representing how resistant and reactive you are to different kinds of trauma and danger. Roll 2 10-sided dice, add them together, then add 10. Record the results for each save. Easy. Step 3, choose your class. There are 4 basic classes in Mothership. Marines are handy in a fight, but whenever they panic, it may cause problems for the rest of the crew. Androids are a terrifying and exciting addition to any crew. They tend to unnerve other players with their cold inhumanity. Scientists are doctors, researchers, or anyone who wants to slice open creatures or infected crew members with a scalpel. Teamsters are rough and tumble blue-collar space workers, mechanics, engineers, miners, and pilots. Same 4 that we're used to in Zero Edition Mothership. But yeah, kind of everything you need for a vast majority of sci-fi scenarios. Then we get on to the next page here. Step 5, gain stress. Your current stress and minimum stress both start at 2. The minimum stress starting at 2 is good to know. That was something I didn't know when I was running my little hack for it, so we weren't sure what to start at. Minimum stress is cool. It kind of means you can never reset. You'll never be able to rest down below 2. It's like that background late stress that I think most of us experience, sometimes more than others. But it's good. It's a good balancing thing and comes into play later. Step 6, note your trauma response. Each class deals with stress and panic differently, which comes into play later in the game. Mark your trauma response for future reference. So that, I think, was on the other page. Yes, right here, your trauma response. So Marine, whenever you panic, every nearby friendly player must make a fear save, because you're probably the guy with the gun who's freaking out. Scientist, whenever you fail a sanity save, all nearby players gain 1 stress. Those kind of things. It is cool to have class differences. I think the thing that I like from reading this is I like that the class differences are different strengths, but also different weaknesses, but actually different weaknesses in ways that affect the rest of the team. Whereas it's not like, oh, you take double damage you're weak to fire damage. It's like when you take fire damage, the whole rest of your team is, it's cool to have something that affects the rest of the party as well. When you choose your class, both negatively and positively. Step 7, choose skills. Each class comes preloaded with relevant skills, which help characters perform better at different challenges. Additionally, each class has a number of bonus skills to select now. In order to choose a skill, you need to have at least 1 prerequisite skill, a skill that has an arrow pointing from it. That's nice too, the at least 1 prerequisite skill. I think that was up in the air before on if we're looking over here, if I want to take, trying to think, like hyperspace, do I need to have piloting and physics, or just 1? Or even mysticism actually links to hyperspace, so could I just have that? So it's nice to know you could go art, mysticism, hyperspace, which is really cool. It feels very flavorfully different than going 0G piloting hyperspace, or even math, physics, hyperspace, right? Those all tell 3 very different stories of your character's knowledge of hyperspace. Step 8, roll loadout, trinket, and patch. Roll for a loadout based on your class on page blank, blank, blank. Roll for a trinket and patch on page blank, blank, blank. Finally, roll 2d10 and multiply it by 10 for your starting credits. Simple. Really simple stuff. Write your name and pronouns. Love to see pronouns included here as well. Mark a 0 above high score. You're now ready to play your first session of Mothership. So that's easy, right? You could set people down at a table, and in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, probably 15 minutes of people choosing skills, right? You could have everybody with people who've never played before with characters, which is great. I really like the inclusion of high score. It basically is just how many sessions has your character survived. It's not doesn't denote level or anything like that. It's literally just how many sessions have you survived, which has a very fun, sort of very old school feel to it, I think. Safety instructions. More awesome art here. This sort of biomechanical creature crushing this body in it. I love how this looks a lot. It's a lot more detailed than the original 0ER, but it's that same very frantic scrawling style, which is really cool. Safety instructions. How to be a great player. Mothership can be a very challenging game. You should expect characters to die. Play smart. Make the most of your time. Violence to be awful. If you're fighting, you're losing. Violence is deadly and should be avoided at all costs. To make difficult choices. Surviving the ordeal, solving the mystery, or saving the day are often mutually exclusive. A safe play environment. This is a horror game and it can deal with many uncomfortable topics. It's your responsibility to make sure you're not making anyone at the table uncomfortable with your words and actions, both in and out of character, and to speak up if you feel uncomfortable or if you notice anyone else might be uncomfortable. This is all good too. This is similar to sort of pronouns, similar to content warning. This is not stuff I remember being in the 0 edition book. And it's nice to see that they call it out here as this is how to be a great player. A lot of times I definitely feel like that create a safe play environment is kind of thrown entirely on the warden or the GM, or it's definitely like unduly placed on them when it really is everyone's responsibility, because oftentimes the warden can encroach on that just like any player would. Maybe more often, honestly, I would say. It's also really good to know that you shouldn't be fighting. If you're fighting, you're losing. That's great. I enjoy and have played a lot of Call of Cthulhu in the past, and that is a key to that system. It's key to understanding how to have a winning, have a successful time for your characters. So it's good for them to call that out here. How to play. Mothership is a tabletop role-playing game. You and your friends get together, and one of you, the warden, prepares a scenario for the rest of you to explore and interact with. You'll ask questions, roll some dice, make some jokes, and die a few times. The rules are simple, but the game is challenging, and there are only a few basic rules you need to know. Stats checks are the most common role in the game. You roll them when you want to do something, and the price for failure is high. Once again, they're really, they're hammering this home. This should not be something you roll to see if you can open a door. It should be to see if you can frantically open a locked door while an alien creature is running down the hallway at you. Saves are rolled to avoid different kinds of mental, emotional, and physical danger. Nice little note here. Anytime you fail a stat check or a save, you gain 1 stress. Stress can be bad as it makes you more likely to panic, but you also need stress in order to improve your saves. This is not a new thing, the gain 1 stress, but it is nice to see it still retained and laid out here this simply. I think it would be really hard for new wardens to know when to dole out stress appropriately. So it's nice to just have it be like, just learn when to call for a roll, and then the failures on the roll denote the stress. So there aren't 2 things you have to manage as a warden. Panic checks are rolled when the worst has happened and your character snaps. A bad panic roll can lead to long-term conditions that you'll need to get treated. But a good roll can help you focus when you need it most. Yeah, when we were playing through that module using the sort of hacked 1E rules, we had several really good panic rolls where they actually, it was like a make or break difference of that person hit that panic, and instead of snapping, they actually like doubled down and focused, which was awesome. Whenever you get hurt, you lose health. Lose enough health, and you lose a wound. Lose all your wounds, and you die. This is another big change in 1E that we'll get into later as it goes. But the addition of sort of wounds to players is a big difference. With these 5 basics in mind, you're ready to handle 90% of the situations that come up in a game. For everything else, you, the warden, and other players need to discuss the situation and come up with a ruling that suits your table's specific needs. Once again, this feels nice and sort of inclusive of including the warden as just a player, and the players as all being on equal footing at the table, which I enjoy. And is often how the best really weird rulings come out. The warden might say, "Oh, I see it as being this," and then they're like, "Well, no, my intention was to do this thing," and you go, "Okay, well, let's tweak that," and then the whole table is kind of like, "Cool, that makes sense." With that being said, you can close this book and start playing right now. There's even a handy cheat sheet on the back cover if you forget something. If you'd like a little more information about how it all works, read on. It's unique, I think, for a book. I guess you see this kind of more minimalist approach come up more often in OSR, old school revival, Renaissance, whatever you want to call it, inspired things. But it's unique to have a whole book and you get 7-8 pages in and the book just says, "You're good. Just close the book. Close the book if you want. You don't really need it." Everything else from here is just added bonus. I feel like you'd love to see that that's the focus is on play, which is important over knowing the rules. Dice notation. There are 3 ways we notate dice. D100 means to roll a pair of 10-sided dice. XD10 means to roll a number of 10-sided dice. Yeah, like 1D10, 2D10. Pretty standard notation. Sometimes you'll see a plus or a minus next to a roll. If you see a plus, this means your roll has advantage, while a minus means the roll had disadvantage. Treat about that. Good. Blah, blah, blah. Player supply checklist. A nice little sort of infographic here. Once you've collected all of these items and built your character, you're ready to play. Player's survival guide, what we're looking at here. Snacks. Bring some to share. Your character sheet and a spare is handy in case your character dies. 1D10, 1D20 panic die. 1D100 percentile dice. Pen and paper. Some tokens, optional. Nothing too unusual there. So more very cool art here. Uh, I do really like the variety, like this sort of that they've kept the black and white feel from the original, but they've varied the art up and gotten like other outside contributors and stuff for it. It's cool. So stat checks. Whenever you want to do something, the price for failure is high. Roll 1d100 and attempt to roll lower than your most relevant stat. This is called a stat check. If you roll less than your stat, you succeed. If you roll greater than your stat, you fail and gain 1 stress. Your stats. Every character has 4 main stats. Strength, forcing open jammed airlocks, carrying fallen comrades, holding on for dear life. Speed, getting out of the cargo bay before the blast doors close, acting and reacting in a race against the clock. Intellect, recalling your training and experience under duress. Combat, fighting for your life. Saves. In order to avoid certain dangers or trauma, you sometimes need to roll 1d100 lower than your most relevant save. This is called a save. If you roll less than your save, you succeed. If you roll greater than your save, you fail and gain 1 stress. This page feels a little, well, it's not, I would say it feels a little redundant, but I think that's only because I know something coming from 1E. It feels that way to me because I know how you roll in Mothership, but this first beginning check doesn't actually tell you that you need to roll under your thing to your stat to succeed. I was gonna say it feels a little bit like we just are doubling up what we just saw, which it does to some extent, but I think that having this explicitly called out is good, especially when you're not familiar with the system. Every character has 3 saves representing their ability to stave off and withstand different kinds of trauma. They are sanity, rationalize logical inconsistencies in the universe, make sense out of chaos, detect illusions and mimicry, cope with stress. Fear, maintain a level head while struggling with fear, loneliness, depression, or other emotional surge. Body, employ quick reflexes and resist hunger, disease, or organisms that might try and invade your insides. Body, I think, makes a lot of sense to me here. Sanity, let's see, rationalize. Obviously, sanity mechanics in games are, can be a very touchy subject, or one where the way that they are portrayed and put in to play can obviously have a big feel for a lot of, or change the feel for a lot of people. So let's see, rationalize logical inconsistencies in the universe, make sense out of chaos, detect illusions and mimicry, cope with stress. I think overall that feels pretty good to me. I think I do. I think the thing that makes that wording work for me is the rationalized logical inconsistencies in the universe, which is to say, it isn't saying that you know the explanation for the things you're seeing that are not consistent with your understanding of the universe. It's just saying that when you are traditionally sane, you are good at rationalizing those, which could be completely made up. It could be nonsense, right? Your rationalization could be not in any way true, but it allows you to sort of maintain, you can still operate within the sort of formal, the society, the culture that you're a part of. So I think that seems good. I would maybe hit on this again, but I'm not probably the right person to do that kind of sensitivity reading type thing. But it feels like they could do a little more here. Fear, also I think could use maybe a little rewording. Because it says, okay, when do I do a fear save? It says, well, a fear save lets you know if you maintain the level head while struggling with fear. Well, okay, it's called a fear save. Like it would be like if the sanity one said helps you see if you're sane. Well, yeah, I know it's called sanity. But I think most players are going to know when one of these applies. Body is, yeah, more like a traditional constitution check in something like Dungeons and Dragons. Fear is like you are physically going to be harmed, like you're in, a mortal danger. Whereas sanity is like you just saw your, childhood friend on a space station where they shouldn't be. more awesome art. This actually follows that spread from the pieces that we just saw. Oh, hey, Israfil, what's up? So this actually follows from that last page we were looking at. It's all one big piece of art, which is awesome. Modifying stat checks and saves. There are 3 things that can modify the outcome of a stat check or save: advantage and disadvantage, critical successes and failures, and skills. Advantage and disadvantage. Whenever you are making a roll of any kind, stat check, save, panic check, damage, etc., and you have a situational advantage like assistance from someone else, that's pretty key. I think a lot of players probably forget this, and a lot of wardens probably don't remind to grant advantage when they have that. Or the task is particularly easy, you roll twice and take the best result. Whenever you are at a situational disadvantage, like poor weather, bad visibility, or the task is particularly hard, you roll twice and take the worst result. Advantage is notated with a plus, disadvantage with a minus. Example. I think, yeah, the advantage is good here. Mothership is it's skewed difficult. You're skewed to, like, most rolls are fails by base sort of stats. You know, if your stat starts at a 45, you're probably going to fail more often than you're not. You have like you might have a 38% chance of success. So that granting that advantage or asking for that advantage if you think you have it as the player is really important. Same thing with this, like teamwork being rewarded is a big deal. Getting to roll that 45% chance twice is a really big deal than just getting to roll it once. I think it would be kind of nice if they cut the task is particularly easy, because like I said, up to this point, it's really hammered home. Like, you should only be rolling if it's a real high, if it's a high risk of failure. Like that failure carries a high risk with it. So it feels a little weird here to say like, oh, for easier things, just roll with advantage. But there are definitely things you're going to get to that are particularly hard. So it makes sense on that end, I think. Critical successes and failures. Whenever you roll doubles, 0, 0, 66, etc., on a stat check or save, you've rolled a critical. If it is a success, it is now a critical success and something very good happens. If it's a failure, it is now a critical failure and something bad happens. And furthermore, you must make a panic check. A roll of 0, 0 is always a critical success, and a roll of 99 is always a critical failure. We'll see more about panic checks later. Pretty straightforward. I will say the thing that I like about this system is that it makes crits more common than, like a D20 system. A 1 is a critical failure if you're someone who plays sort of using 1 as a critical failure. Obviously, like modern Dungeons and Dragons doesn't use that, but that's a 5% chance to roll, whereas the other is a critical success right on a 20, 5% chance to roll that. This is actually more like, what, 10%? You have 10% chance to roll a critical, and then depending on your skill, that gets split between if that's a success or if that's a failure. But it's fun. It means more dramatic things happen more often, which I think is fun. Skills. If you have a skill that is relevant to the task at hand, you can add the skills bonus to your stat or save before making the roll, giving you a higher number to roll under. The other thing I'll say about the criticals that I like with this style is I think it really does play to the aspect well. Obviously, lots of stories can have sharp jumps in that sort of drama, that tension, that like, oh, it goes to this really heightened moment. But it's cool to have. I feel like in horror that happens even more often, right? A critical failure, your person just gets their head blown off, right? That kind of out of nowhere turn in the story feels very horror-y to me. Oh, here, I just noticed this is cutting off some of the stuff. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, weird. All right. All should be well now. Sorry about that. Just cutting off the very edge of the page. Stress. Whether it's the unknown horrors in the cosmos or the vast emptiness of space, encounters in Mothership take a toll on a person. Stress is a measure of that toll and how it subtly affects you, bringing you closer to the brink of panic. While stress by itself doesn't do anything, the higher your stress is, the more likely you are to panic when the time comes, and the more likely the result of that roll will be devastating. How do I gain stress? You gain 1 stress every time you fail a stat check or save. Occasionally, certain locations or entities automatically give you stress from interacting with them or witnessing them. Interacting with or witnessing them. Your minimum stress starts at 2, and based on events that happen in game, such as certain panic check results, can be increased. Pretty straightforward. You can relieve stress by resting in a relatively safe place. To do this, you make a comfort save based on the comfort level of the location. If successful, you reduce your stress by your roll divided by 10. Okay. So let's say, we're in a ship's barracks. It has a comfort level of 45. I rolled and was successful, so I rolled a 40. Divided by 10, I reduce 4 stress. It's kind of interesting. You want to roll successfully, but you actually want to roll as high as you can under that success level, which is a little interesting. This is new or more explicitly laid out than anything I remember being in the 0 edition. This is good though, because stress can build up a lot really quickly, and to know how to get rid of that can help, especially for things that go outside of just like a one shot where you kind of expect all the players to die, or you're playing for 3 hours, and if everyone dies, that's fine. It's just like kind of a fun thing. If you're trying to have a longer form story, being able to vent that stress is good. I think this is a cool system, especially as you can get investments and ship investments and items and things like that that'll add to comfort. It's a cool way to sort of get some mechanical layer to the downtime. Players can gain advantage on their comfort save through consensual sex, drug use, alcohol, prayer, or any other leisure activity. Stress is generally not relieved during cryosleep. So kind of cool to lay that out. That, like, hey, there are vices, religion, games, hobbies, things like that could sort of all lead to you gaining advantage on that comfort save roll. They don't note here that you could get disadvantage on a comfort save roll, so I'm interested to know if their intention is that you would be able to, or if it's just like, no, we're not really going to punish you that much. Example, back at the barracks. Warden, all right. I'm interested. I am excited to see like example text here. I think that's fun. Warden, all right. You finally make it back to the ship and lock yourselves in. You can rest now if you want. Knox, I've got 9 stress, so I'm definitely going to rest. I don't think I'll make it to shore leave if it keeps up like this. Warden, no problem. The barracks has a comfort level of 45. Knox, I don't want to risk it. Margot, you have psychology, right? Any chance you'd be willing to talk to my guy and calm him down a bit? Margot, I'm down. I've only got 3 stress. Warden, yeah, if you're willing to give up your rest, I'll give Knox advantage on his comfort save. Margot, let's do it. So that's cool. It's cool that players can barter on those kind of things. Anytime you have those kind of like in character trades, like mechanically, I at least really enjoy those. Because like Margot giving up her opportunity to rest to grant advantage to him is both a mechanical aspect, but that tells us a lot about the character of Margot. Not only does she have psychology, but she's willing to spend her downtime to help someone else rather than help herself. Disclaimer on sex, which I was going to say is probably good to have, specifically since it was the first way they called out here to gain advantage, which I would maybe reorder because I don't think that most of the time that's going to be the main way players get advantage, at least at tables I tend to play at. Sex. Without express consent from your group ahead of time, sex should not make an appearance in your game. So that even kind of makes it weirder that it's the first one dropped in the list above. Sex should not make an appearance in your game without express consent from your group ahead of time. Even if it does, you'll need to set clear boundaries as to what is acceptable and check in regularly in case anyone's comfort level changes. Any description of sexual assault, rape, or non-consensual sex of any kind should be avoided completely. That's obviously a good rule. I would say typically I haven't really run anything where sex of any kind or sexual content of any kind has typically made an appearance. But I would say this bit especially is like a hard and fast rule that basically everyone should have. Panic checks. Stress, damage, and emotional wear and tear will eventually bring you to your breaking point. When that happens, there's a chance you'll panic. You determine this by making a panic check. What is a panic check? A panic check determines whether you are able to keep your cool under extreme pressure. To make a panic check, roll the panic die, 1d20, and attempt to roll greater than your current stress. If you roll less than your current stress, you fail, and you look up your result on the panic table. Finally, the maximum stress you can have is 20. Any stress you take over 20 reduces the most relevant stat or save by that amount. So that's rough, right? But it is hard to get 20 stress. And other things, bad things are probably going to happen to you before then. But that is crazy that it's like super high stress actually has like an effect on your stats, your character. Like it physically, it's like harming your bodily ability to function. Which, you know, I guess true to life to some extent. Not that games need to ever be true to life. So this is a big difference, right? We're rolling 1d20. It's introducing a new die, which the last game did not have. It was all d10s. And we're attempting to roll greater. So this roll like feels different, right? It flips the mechanic. You aren't rolling under, you're rolling over. I will say that switch confused my players once or twice in the sort of early hack test I did with this. Because they would say like, ooh, I have a stress of 8. Okay, I rolled a 7, good. Yes, because they're so used to rolling under. And then when I was like, oh no, 7 means you panic and you get nightmares. That's your new condition. They were kind of like, oh, like, like thrown off. Like they just built themselves up to this kind of like, good, I didn't panic moment. And then I had to kind of pull the rug out from under them. I think that would be that's a pretty short growing pain. I think, by the time we got to the 3rd or 4th session of that didn't come up anymore. But it is notable that it is different. It is a flipped mechanical, decider on when you succeed and fail. And I think that could throw people. When to make panic checks. The warden has a lot of sway here in determining when to call for panic checks, but these are a few places where it would definitely be appropriate. Any critical failure of a save or stat check, whenever your ship takes a critical hit, when you're inside it, I assume. Watching another crew member die, that's stressful. I would probably panic. Witnessing more than one crew member panic at the same time. So the key there is witnessing more than one. So if one crew member panics, that would not trigger this. But if 2 people did and the same, seeing the same monster, seeing the whatever, that's sort of like group, that mob mentality spreads to you. And that can lead to some of the most memorable moments in Mothership, honestly. Encountering a strange and horrifying entity for the first time, or when all hope is lost and death feels certain. Obviously, a lot of interpretation up to both the characters and the warden in that one. Conditions. Some results of the panic table are so severe that they leave a lasting impression on you. These are called conditions, and they affect you until you're able to treat them, usually through taking shore leave and seeking help. We'll see more about shore leave later. That's also sort of a new thing here. Panic checks and agency. Be sure to go over the panic table and remove any results that don't fit your group. Remember, when role-playing panic, it is never excusable to make someone uncomfortable. Check in regularly. I continue to like that they've added these kind of disclaimers. These kind of, here's how to be a good warden, here's how to be a good player. What should you cut? What should you not? That kind of thing. I will say, unless it comes up later, they could be a little more clear with like, hey, here's the RPG safety toolkit link. Here are express ways to do that, in terms of like things like lines and veils and X cards, or even things even more simple that aren't like already known by a nomenclature, like, have a specific name like that. Even things that are just like check in with your players and see what is something they do not want to appear in this game, or the kind of things they would like to appear, they are comfortable with. Just having that kind of really quick 10-minute conversation with your group can make a big difference. So I think it'd be nice to have something like that here, rather than just the more nebulous, like make sure everyone's comfortable. Because some people I think are going to be coming into Mothership fresh or from a different table experience game, and it's always better to be more explicit with those kind of things, I think. The panic table. So a lot of cool panic effects. I would say if you're going to be a player, don't spoil yourself here too much. It's fun when these things pop up. But you go from the things I mentioned earlier, laser focus, advantage on all rolls for the next 2d10 minutes, to things like nightmares, gain a new condition, sleep is difficult, you gain disadvantage on all comfort saves. So in the moment, that doesn't really affect you a lot. If you're in the middle of a fight with a creature, or you just saw a huge, alien come around the corner, you're afraid of, that doesn't put you at a big disadvantage then, but it puts you at a long-term disadvantage, which is cool. That them adding these conditions are cool ways to affect you on a less immediately punitive way, but really interesting story way. And then it does obviously get crazier. they get more intense, right? Where some of them can be very bad, some of them can start to spiral, some of them compound, some of them lead to like wound loss, things like that. So skills. Give me one moment here. Okay. Skills represent the accumulated knowledge, craft, techniques, and training a character possesses in a certain field. Whenever you make a stat check or save, or you have a relevant skill, you add your skill bonus to your stat or save, giving you a higher number to roll under. Each class starts with a few skills, and characters can acquire more through long-term study and rigorous training while on shore leave. No skill, +0. Just because you don't have a skill doesn't mean you don't know anything about the subject, and it usually doesn't mean you can't at least make an attempt. What it means is that you don't have a significant enough experience or expertise in the matter to act decisively in high-pressure situations. Therefore, you get no bonus, and depending on how complex the task is, you might even roll with disadvantage. Train skills +10, so basically adds 10% chance of success. You've received standard training in this area, equivalent to a bachelor's degree or on-the-job training for a few years. Archaeology, ancient subcultures and artifacts, art, athletics, zoology, botany, chemistry, computers, geology, industrial equipment, jury rigging, linguistics, mathematics, military training, rimwise, which is like practical knowledge and know-how regarding the like edge of, sort of the seedy, it's like streetwise in a fantasy setting, how the seedier extra legal edges of society function. Theology, 0G. Something that kind of throws me, I guess, or is a little unexpected to me, is this description of trained skills. Because if it's saying equivalent to a bachelor's degree or on-the-job training for a couple of years, I feel like an archaeologist, someone with a degree in archaeology, they just studied archaeology for 4 years, in my mind would be more than 10% better. 10% is likely to be successful at an archaeology related thing than someone just off the street. I think the plus 10% is fine mechanically, but I feel like they could cut down this expected, the amount of investment they're saying this trains, especially because we also don't get a lot of, maybe there could be more unique sort of mothershipy sci-fi flavor here. Like you received a basic corporate training in this area equivalent to 4 to 8 hours of watching a video, that kind of thing. That would feel more accurate to me. Skills. Expert skills, 15% bonus. You've received the equivalent of a doctorate or have many years of experience in this field. Expert skills should generally be a subset or a specific focus of a trained skill. Asteroid mining, ecology, explosives, field medicine, firearms, hacking, hand-to-hand combat, mechanical repair, mysticism, pathology, pharmacology, physics, piloting, psychology, tactics, wilderness survival. All good ones, all cool. I would say same thing here. The description of the investment of like your character's investment in relation to the bonus you get feels too much. Like a doctorate. So I'm pretty sure like I have a friend who is a doctor. I'm pretty sure he is more than 15% likely to perform CPR on someone than me, a non-doctor. So when that's the description that feels big. Too big, I guess. Too big of a time investment from a character standpoint for too little of a return mechanically. Master skills plus 20. You are one of the luminaries of your field and are aware of cutting edge techniques or highly specialized and niche information. Due to their focus, master skills apply very narrowly compared to broader trained skills. Artificial intelligence, command, cybernetics, engineering, exobiology, study in search of alien life. Hyperspace, planetology, robotics, sophontology, which is the study of the behavior and mind of inhuman entities. Not a word a lot of people not familiar with Mothership would know. Surgery and xenoesotericism, obscure beliefs, mysticism, and religion regarding non-human entities, which is very fun, I think. All right. Yeah, same. I would say same. I have the same initial criticism or thought that I do of the others here. Just 20% better for being a luminary of your field. So I would keep the bonuses that they are. I would just cut those descriptions down. Violent encounters. This is a big change from 0E and a big change from a lot of RPGs. Violence in Mothership is incredibly dangerous and should be avoided at all costs. When all else fails, this is how you resolve the encounter. Turn order. During a violent confrontation, we split time into roughly 10-second intervals called rounds. Everything within a round happens at basically the same time. The warden describes the situation and what is likely to happen if you do not respond, and then you go around the table and each describe how you react. As usual, you are free to ask questions and the warden will answer them and explain the likely consequences for failure of any proposed actions. Once you understand the stakes in what you want to do, you commit to a course of action, either individual or as a group. Once everyone has done this, the warden resolves everyone's actions at once, assigning any necessary stat checks or saves that everyone who has to rolls. After any stat checks and saves are rolled, if anyone is taking damage or a wound, those are rolled. Finally, the warden describes the new situation and the next round starts. This repeats until the encounter is resolved. So I guess the thing that's interesting here is there is not like essentially an initiative roll, right? It isn't really treated too differently than every other thing you encounter in the game. It's just the warden is making sure every player has a chance to respond. Rather than some things, that come up in play of I'm trying to hack my way into this door, or I'm trying to examine this sample. That's normally going to be focused on one player who's doing that. But since this is a big fight with everyone, you give everyone a chance to pop in. But that's really the only difference. It doesn't even say, players always go before enemies. Enemies always go after players. Compare their speed stats and see who does this, who does that, which is cool. So it is very much within the standard mode of play. It just happens to be something that is violent. That's how we played it when we did the playthrough of what we give to Alien Gods, and it really made combat feel much more unique. It kind of pulled players out of that mindset of like, okay, we're in combat now. I need to just be fighting, so I'm going to shoot this person. I'm going to run to cover. They were much more creative in the way that you are normally when you aren't in combat. You're sort of looking at all your skills and thinking about what your character would do in the entire situation, which is cool, rather than making it feel like you've loaded into a tactics mini game, which can be kind of constraining, at least as me when I play. I know it can be. It makes me feel like I need to attack, I need to do damage every turn. It led to us having a lot more creative solutions to the fight. Surprise. If there is a chance you are ambushed or stunned by a horrific encounter, the warden will call for a fear save. Those who succeed are able to react. Those who fail are too shocked to react until the next round. So this would be like this thing busts through the wall right in front of you. If you fail a fear save, you're going to take a stress. You don't get to act. Everyone who succeeds is steely-eyed enough, to face the threat the moment it comes out. strict turn order. Some groups prefer a very strict turn order. If this is the case for your group, we recommend everyone make a speed check at the start of the encounter. Those who succeed go before the enemy hostiles. Those who fail go after. If the situation changes dramatically, for instance, if new hostiles enter the encounter, then speed checks can be called for again. So a little bit of like an optional rule here. It might be nice for them to explicitly put, like maybe in a lighter gray text here or something like dash optional, like optional rule, strict turn order, that kind of thing. But this is similar to what it used before, but a more streamlined version of the 0E rules. And I do think there are tables there are people that are going to like that structure to combat. So, like anything, always make the game fit what your players like, what you like, what works for you. Example, the thing that was Paul. Warden. Okay, so the thing that used to be Paul is galloping down the corridor. His mouth is unzipping down his chest into one giant maw. Margot, it's reaching out to grab you and Nox. Unimpeded, it's going to crash right into you. What are y'all doing? Margot, I'm going to stand my ground and unload on this guy. Sorry, Paul. Paul, it was my fault. I shouldn't have opened that door. Warden. Margot, roll a combat check. There's a lot of pipes here, so you might take some blowback damage if you fail. That's fine. I hate this ship anyway. Can I add my military training? Definitely, says the warden. Paul, I think it's safe to say you can roll up another character or play one of the Marines you hired at that last port. Paul, oh yeah, I'll play Corporal Davis. I liked her. Warden, perfect. She's still on the bridge, but if she heads this way, she can be here next round. Nox, what about you? I think I'm going to try and get to some cover. I want to get out of the being formerly known as Paul's way. X-Paul is running pretty fast, so that will be a speed check. Failure means it'll be able to get you. Does all that sound good to everybody? Nox, my body is ready. Warden, okay, sweet, let's roll. Margot, fail. Nox, fail. Paul, y'all. Warden, okay, so Margot, you fire, but the creature's moving too fast. You hit the pipes embedded in the bulkhead, and they spray steam right into your eyes. Take 4 damage. Nox, the Paul thing snatches you up and his claws just tear through you. You take, ouch, 14 damage. Nox, that's a wound for sure. Only one left. All right, Corporal Davis, you arrive and you're seeing this carnage. Your former character is about to devour Nox alive. What's everyone doing? Oh, and Nox, let's roll up that one. So it gives you a good example. It's kind of appropriately, like, it's nice to have it be a little more like jokey and fun and everything in here to show that, like, just because it's a horror game doesn't mean it has to be like grim dark and everything. Which is kind of nice because I don't think most people play purely in that mode all times at the table. Also cool to see in an example them working in a character has died. How do we have that player? How do we still incorporate that player into play? I haven't seen that in a lot of more death prone things. That might just be my experience though. What can I do? You can generally move somewhere nearby and then do one thing before the situation changes. Think of the situation like a real life scenario. Think about what you would do in those circumstances and describe that to the warden. If you wouldn't be able to accomplish everything you want to do in one round, or your choices are especially foolhardy or dangerous, the warden will do their best to let you know and explain the risks involved. Here's a non-exhaustive list of all kinds of things you could attempt in a round. Attacking something, bandaging a wound, checking vital signs, fire a weapon, vehicle's weapon, maneuver piloted vehicle, open an airlock. You just do things, basically. Additionally, if you decide to do nothing other than run, you can move somewhere that's far away other than just moving to nearby. So that's cool. You can double run effectively from using sort of D&D version. Being effective. Your combat stat, while important for direct attacks, isn't the only thing you can use to save your life. Outsmart, outrun, or outlast your enemy and you'll survive. Attacking may not be as important as distracting an enemy, so if a fellow crew member gets a shot, likewise, studying the creature's movements for a weak spot or pattern may help. This is cool to have them call out, because like I said, the most successful fights for my players when we were running this version of combat was this, where they didn't actually just stand and shoot over and over. Attack and defense. How do I attack? To attack, make a combat check. If you're successful, roll your weapon's damage. If you fail, the situation gets worse and you gain 1 stress. Critical successes deal a wound, and critical failures trigger a panic check as normal. Damage. Each of your wounds has a certain amount of health. Whenever you take damage, you subtract it from your health, marking off the bubbles on your sheet. Once a wound loses all its health, mark off the wound and roll on the wounds table. Any remaining, this is something we weren't sure about before now. Any remaining damage carries over to the next wound. Attacks that deal damage and wounds subtract directly from the enemy's remaining wounds. Their health stays the same. So that's good to know, right? So if each of my wounds, basically think of them as like life bars. Each of my life bars has 10 hit points in it. I take 15. That means I would lose all of my first wound, all 10 points, and then I would lose 5 points from the second wound. But because I only lost 1 wound, I would only roll once on the wound chart, essentially the wound table. The thing that's nice about the system is I think it would allow for really simple home ruling to make a game maybe more pulpy, maybe a little slightly more heroic or not. You could say like damage doesn't carry over. That would basically mean like there's never going to be a situation where you're going to just be 1 shot from damage alone, right? It could still, it's a wound, it could still be bad. It could be your arm gets cut off in the airlock, or a creature, tears your leg off or something. But it would help give you maybe that more pulpy feel, whereas doing it this way where it carries over is going to obviously be more risky, more dangerous, and your players are going to be a little thinner. So I think the wound system adds a cool cinematic layer of you're getting these punctuated, and you'll see when we get to the wound table, these sort of punctuated moments that really stand out more than just you take 4 damage. Armor, another difference from Zero Edition. Your armor protects you from any damage below its armor point value. However, if you ever take more damage than your armor's AP, the armor is destroyed and any remaining damage is dealt to the character. Weapons that deal damage strictly in wounds ignore and destroy your armor unless the armor specifically protects against it. So yeah, armor value, AP, armor you have on might be AP 5. If you took 3 damage from an enemy, you just ignore it entirely. It just hits your armor and bounces off. But if you took 6, it punches through the armor, and that first 5 points would be, blocked by the armor, and then the next 1 point punch through. So it's also cool because it means that you're going to want to try to find and replace your armor as you go through. So it kind of makes you feel a little more scavengy as you play. You might want to take the vac suit off that corpse that you passed in the last room because now you don't have a vac suit. Which definitely feels more like that scrounging, digging around kind of, thing. Cover is protection provided by the environment around you. Depending on the type of cover, you receive a different amount of protection. Just like, it's actually behind this. I can see the text just barely. Just like armor, cover can be something, so you'll have to keep moving if you want to use it. Cover can be destroyed. So you want to keep moving if you want to use it. So basically stacks like on top of your armor. Insignificant cover, 5 AP, light cover, 10 AP, heavy cover. Enemy has disadvantage on combat checks. So that's cool. And that's something that as a player, I would really want to remind myself to keep in mind. I'd want to say like, describe to me where I am in the room. Okay, I want to go back out into the hallway, and I want to hide around the bulkhead wall and fire around the corner, right? That getting that 10 AP bonus of that corner is going to be a big deal. That might save you from 1 whole hit, which could save you from dying. Okay. Wounds and death. What are wounds? Whenever you lose a wound, roll 1d10 on the wounds table according to the type of damage. Blunt force, getting punched, hit with a crowbar. Bleeding, getting stabbed or cut. Gunshot, getting, shot by a gun. Fire and explosives, grenades, flamethrowers, doused in fuel, etc. Gore and massive, damage from giant creatures or particularly gruesome foes. Use common sense when interpreting these results. The severity column can give a guideline for what to expect from a wound that doesn't fit neatly onto the table. So here's the wound table. So anytime you lose a wound, you just roll a flat d10, and then that would be here. So if say I had 10 HP per wound, I took 10 damage, so I expended my first wound. I roll on this. I roll a 3, and I was getting shot. I go to gunshot. I go to 3. Fractured extremity, right? So it can be like, okay, you take that damage and lose a wound, and the bullet shattered your femur. It shattered your forearm bone. That you're not only bleeding, but that hand is not really usable. Lots of cool, good things here. It is worth noting that there's always at least one chance that you die. That you just flat out die. So worth noting. We actually, in the What We Give to Alien Gods run through I did using this table, we had 2 players roll that on their first wound expenditure. So it is very much a possibility that you do die. If you may have 30 health overall, but you lose that wound, and the shot hit your neck and you bleed out. Sorry, any damage can be fatal at a point. It is worth noting, though, that the final wound one, if this is your last wound where you would be going to effectively 0 health, is obviously much for what's happening. Much harsher. Half the time you're gonna die, which is fair. If anything, it feels like a win to have a chance to not even die when you lose all your health. Death. Whenever you lose your final wound, roll on the final wound column on the wounds table. If your character has died, roll up a new one. Additionally, some wounds, fatal wounds, kill you instantly, bypassing your need to roll on the final column. Character death. That's kind of what I was saying. Where if you rolled that, I rolled a 9 on my first wound expenditure, and it says, oh, you bleed out, die, dead. You wouldn't then also roll on final wound after. If your character's death is unavoidable, make your last moments count. Save someone's life, solve an important mystery, give the others time to escape, enjoy the carnage, then jump back in for this is a big one, for sure. And this is the kind of thing that as a warden, you can do things to encourage. You can say, I'll grant that player advantage on their next combat roll because you are distracting the creature by literally running up and just letting it eat you because you're not going to make it out of here. Encouraging that, rewarding that kind of very dramatic, very exciting play is always good. Range and distance. My memory of this page is that it is an awesome spread, so I'm gonna pull this one back up again. So yeah, the art here you can see is great. Spreads across both pages. A whole crew fighting an alien horror here, and then you can see each of these ranges: close, nearby, far away, out of range, matches with characters that are right here in the art, which is awesome. In Mothership, range, distance, and movement are tracked abstractly in range bands. I think this is a new thing from Zero Edition as well. This is kind of always roughly how I was playing at my tables. Leads are close, nearby, far away, out of range. Describing distance should be done in human, casual terms. What's important is whether something can touch you, whether they can get to you, whether you can shoot them, or whether you can't. It can touch you close. At close range, you're basically touching. This covers fist fights, close quarters combat, and trying to get out of the grips of a hideous monster. More than that, it covers things like using a computer terminal or administering first aid to someone. You can even talk comfortably, whisper, and even smell someone at this range. Example, run away. Warden, all right, so the airlock door breaks down and more of these pawls start swarming the base. Margot, I call it in. Nox, I'm running, just pure running. Warden, all right, some of them are attacking. And it does give more concrete, like less than 1 meter, 3 feet, for people that are minded that way. It can get to you nearby. Someone nearby can be reached by running over to them in a few seconds. They're close enough that you could likely throw something at them and hit them. You'd have to speak loud enough that someone on the other side of the room could hear you. Powerful stenches can be smelled if they're nearby. Firearms like shotguns are most effective at this range or closer. You can shoot it far away. Things in this range band are far enough away that they take an entire round to get to, if not longer. Rifles are effective at this range, but handguns and shotguns less so. You'd have to yell at someone to get their attention. You probably won't smell anyone this far away, no matter how bad they stink. I like how they really go down the rabbit hole with the smell. You can hear them scream out of range. Only the longest range rifles, like weapons like smart rifles, can hit something accurately in this range band. It takes more than one turn to get to something here, and even if you hear a scream, you might not know which direction it's coming from. It's a really nice, evocative, like these. I have a feel for what all these are because they sort of went down the sensory ways that you judge that kind of distance. And once again, great art. You can really quickly pretty much just say, look at that art and judge the scene you're actually in at the table and know. Survival is hard in Mothership, and you'll have to scrimp, save, and scavenge to make it from one rock to the next, all before defending yourself from the vile monstrosities in the galaxy. Below are some of the most common afflictions you'll encounter while traveling. So this is a lot of stuff that's going to happen over longer term play. Some of these things I think are not going to come up in like a one shot or a typical, even shorter module session kind of thing. Oh my gosh, I just got spooked. My cat touched my shoulder. She's standing up on the table and she tapped my shoulder and spooked me. Come here. Hold on, I gotta get her up so she can sit on my lap. There. Addiction. Excessive use of some medications like stim packs requires a body save to prevent addiction. Once addicted, you'll need to take twice the amount of medication to gain the same effect. Additionally, whenever taking more than one dose at a time, roll 1d10. If you roll the number of doses or less, roll on the final wound column. God. To begin recovery, so yeah, you could be like, I'm taking 4, and then it's like, all right, you might OD on this. To begin recovery from addiction, you'll need to seek treatment during shore leave. Bleeding. Some weapons or wounds force you to bleed. This means you take 1 damage every round until the bleeding is stopped. Additionally, bleeding adds up. If you're bleeding 1 point of damage per round and gain bleeding +1, now you take 2 damage per round. So really harsh. Bleeding weapons are rough. Cryosickness. Most crews traveling for long periods of time in space or jumping through hyperspace are put into a state of suspended animation called cryosleep inside a coffin-like capsule called a cryopod. While cryosleep preserves your vitals during long trips, after awaking you are sluggish and slow with a hangover-like feeling known as cryosickness. While cryosick, you suffer disadvantage on all rolls for 1 week. This can be mitigated with upgraded cryo chambers and can be instantly cured by a stim pack. The instantly cured by a stim pack is really useful and good to know. That came up in our... I had my players make an A team and a B team on the ship, and the B team when we started was in cryosickness. They were just woken up about like a week later than the main crew that they were going in, and they came back all rough and damaged, and they were like, we feel like there's a time pressure. We need you guys to go out. So their other characters all stim packed and then went out. So it felt like a fun trade-off too, because it ate into their overall medical supplies, but it gave them essentially fresh characters to some extent. Oxygen. In space, you can last 15 seconds without oxygen before falling unconscious. After passing out, you can survive for 1d10 minutes before dying. If all of a ship's life support modules are destroyed, roll 1d10 for each destroyed life support module. This is how many days of breathable oxygen per crew member remain. Every 24 hours, subtract the total number of breathing crew members from the remaining oxygen supply. Any crew members engaged in strenuous activity further reduce the oxygen supply by 1 each. Whether the oxygen supply is whenever it is less than 2 times the amount of passengers, all rolls are at disadvantage as the crew suffers headaches, fatigue, anxiety, and general clumsiness. Whenever the oxygen supply is less than the total amount of breathing passengers, every breathing passenger must make a body save or roll on the final wound column as they suffer panting and dizziness, severe headaches, impaired vision, and tinnitus. Once the oxygen supply runs out, you can survive for 15 seconds before you fall unconscious. After falling unconscious, you can survive for 1d5 minutes without oxygen before dying. So this is definitely a little bit more complex than maybe it could be, or in relation to a lot of other things in the system. But I think the thing that's nice is if this was coming up, I would, as the warden and probably as the players, I would just have this page up as the warden. I'd be going through it and sort of ticking down the time as time passes. Androids and anyone in cryosleep do not consume oxygen from the soul. Radiation. Whether it's cosmic rays, an engine leak, or some previously undiscovered material unearthed from a strange asteroid, radiation can kill you if you're not careful. Radiation deals damage directly to your stats and saves. Hazard suits, vac suits, and advanced battle dress reduce radiation damage by their AP and are not destroyed by excessive radiation damage. Wait. Oh, they reduce radiation damage, and this doesn't destroy the suit. Okay, I see what it's saying. So yeah, if you're taking 3 radiation, but your suit is radiation protection is 5, then your armor just always protects you against that level of radiation. Radiation level 1, trace, normal everyday radiation. Level 2, acute, 3 damage to strength every 10 minutes. Low grade, 5 damage to strength, 5 damage to body save every 10 minutes. High grade, 10 damage to all stats and saves every 10 minutes. God. Level 5, lethal, death in 2d10 times 10 hours. Body save grants advantage on life expectancy. So you could body save to roll twice as long, but you're still going to die. Pretty rough. This is nice to have. Actually, this is a thing that could come up in my pamphlet adventure. So when I do my 1E conversion there, I'll just probably say, you know, if you fail to repair the reactor or you fail to roll to repair the reactor, take level 3 low grade radiation as you continue to work in the space, that kind of thing. Toxic and corrosive atmospheres. Planets with toxic or corrosive atmospheres require special gear to explore. Toxic atmosphere. The planet's atmosphere is not fit to breathe, but is safe otherwise. A rebreather or armor with its own oxygen supply is required. Without these, you take 1d10 damage per round, body save for half. Corrosive atmosphere. The planet's atmosphere is deadly and destructive. It deals damage every round while you are on it. Corrosive atmosphere damage ranges from 1 damage, mildly corrosive, to 10, highly corrosive. Any higher than this is simply impossible to traverse without specialized equipment or armor. Look at this spread here. Ooh, okay, I love this art. This sort of overgrown, like these little bones here show how like big this alien is. There's like a human skull down here. Example of play. Okay, well, let's see here. We are about halfway through, and I am having an increasing array of... Oh my god, what just happened? Why did it go to halfway through? Of obnoxious cat-related moments here, so... I might call the read through here for now. We're pretty much right at the halfway point of the book. I actually don't know. Let me look. Okay, this might be the center spread. I wonder what the center spread of the book is. Might be one of these two, but now we're getting into more like the nitty gritty of like campaign style play. So we'll get, I'll go through the example of play, I think, and then we'll call it here. And then we'll get into the back half of the book. That's probably gonna be more of that shore leave campaign level play here next time, when I have a chance to dig through the rest of it, probably the next few days. So example of play, example, empty vessel. Warden. Okay, so once y'all get to the bottom of the basin, you find rows and rows of these black cylinders. There's some kind of carving or sculpture atop each one, sort of like a canopic jar. Oh, I want one. No, Paul, bad. Paul, it'll be fine. Do I recognize the carvings at all? I've got archaeology. Warden. It's fairly reminiscent of some stuff you've seen in your studies. Funerary urns, most likely. Your guess would be they contain preserved organs, theoretically. Cool thing here, he didn't have to roll for it, right? He just said, I have a skill that's relevant. The warden told him what he would know. Knox, do they look heavy? Warden, they look like they could be. Do you want to pick one up? Knox, no thanks, I'm good. Paul, I'll do it. It has these intact remains from some kind of ancient civilization. I mean, think of what they could fetch on the black market. Oh, here, let me do this. Warden, if they were evidence of alien life, you think you've got a contact that could move these for millions of credits. Margot, this is dumb. This is a dumb game. Warden, so Paul, you want to open one? What's everyone else doing? Margot, if I can see what Paul is doing, I'm going to try to stop him physically if I have to. Warden, are you all okay with a little PvP here? Paul, yeah, if I'm legit being annoying, please let me know and I'll cut it out. Margot, no, this is good. Thanks for checking. So some good out of character checking, like, oh, am I making you like actually aggravated, or am I just making your character aggravated, right? Because some great interpersonal conflict is great in character. It's not great out of character. Paul, perfect, because I want to look inside those jars really bad. Margot, okay, cool. I'm down for a little tussle over the goo jars if you are. Paul, yeah, let's do it. Knox, whatever y'all do it quick. I don't like being in here. Warden, okay, Paul, you're reaching for the jars. You're just, what, like opening them straight up? Paul, I'm probably taking my sweet time, looking at the carvings, muttering about importance of the findings, just nerd stuff. Warden, okay, and Margot, you're just going to, like, tackle him? Margot, no, if he's not paying attention, I'm going to put my boot on top of the jar and aim my pulse rifle at him and be like, "Nuh, no, sir, I'm not getting paid enough for this." Warden, okay, Paul, you're studying, and then boom, Margot's boot clamps down on the lid and you see her gun pointing at you. Go ahead and make a fear save for me. Yeah, that's fair. 23, success. Warden, okay, so you see her and you're just not that impressed, I guess. Paul, yeah, I think I'm not really comprehending that this is a gun in my face. I'm just thinking dollar signs and alien jar. Warden, are you taking your hands off the jar? Paul, I think first I'm like, none of us are being paid enough for this, but we can change that. Let's just take a couple right now. I know a guy who can sell them. Warden, Knox, while all this is going on, one of the lids on the jar next to you starts to slide off. Knox, guys, is that a fear save? Warden, I mean, if it creeps you out, by all means. Knox, yeah, I think I'm going to take a stress for that. Also great, very cool to see in the example is players knowing when their player would trigger a mechanic, right? It's okay, as the player, you can totally call for a fear save. You can totally say, like, I think I take stress from this. Like, check in with the warden on that stuff because you know your character better than the warden. And playing into those mechanical aspects of the game is super fun. Margot, can I see that? Warden, I think probably you're paying attention to Paul, and it's probably too subtle a movement for you to catch unless you're looking for it. Knox, are you doing anything here? Knox, yeah, I'm getting out of here. Guys, this jar is opening. I'm getting out of here. And then I just like book it. I don't care if they follow me. I'm out. Warden, okay, so y'all hear that? Knox just like turns tail and gets the hell out of Dodge. Margot, you see that one of the urns near him is emitting some kind of gas. Margot, I'm wearing a hazard suit, by the way. Warden, totally. Yeah, it doesn't seem toxic, but as this lid slides off, you see what looks like 8 spider legs unfold out of the top. Paul, all right, yeah, we can leave. I'm good. So good examples in there. I like that their examples are written very casually. It feels very accurate to like what probably most tables actually sound like, not like, oh, this is what, tables should sound like, or this is a very serious, only sticking to the rule thing. It's like little out of character bits. And I really think that the player asking if it's a fear save or calling for taking his own stress is good. Those kind of things make for that more collaborative atmosphere. Makes for so much of a better table. So yeah, those things are very cool to see. I think overall, I'm happy. I think that they have so far. I'm really interested to get into the more campaign level view of things, because that's stuff that I haven't gotten a chance to experience yet. But I'm about to jump from what we give to Alien Gods. The surviving crew is going to lead into a campaign there. So we're about to do a shore leave and things like that are going to come up in the rest of the book. So I will do another one of these. Then I will pull up the next chart as well. Turn my video back on because here I am. Here, do you want to see this cat I'm trying to deal with? She's chewing on my headphone cable. Yeah, I'll do another one here on the second half. But like I said, I think the main thing that sticks out to me is that I think the sanity and fear descriptions could be cleaned up a little more. I think that the skill descriptions, like the level of investment your character has, are a little too high. Like in the story fiction wise, they're too high for the actual reward you're getting. But all those things could be tweaked and changed as they go, and you could very easily change them at your table. So that's always the best. If it's something where I could just say, yeah, plus 10%, this is probably something you took a course on as part of your job. That's going to feel way different than it being set in stone other ways. So I'd always rather those things be easier to adjust than the numbers. But it's also nice to have things like radiation and those other things set out too. So yeah. So I'm going to be done off for now. I will return probably another day with part 2 as we go through that second half and get into ships and space travel and shore leave and all that kind of stuff. But thanks to anyone who hung out and watched. I'm excited to have actually read through a lot more of this now.